Hello and welcome to Aurora C#, which is the latest version of the Aurora series. This really is a very special little game, very often regarded like Dwarf Fortress in space with spreadsheets, which it very much is like. It's actually a crazy detailed game. So you basically premise, you operate the space empire, starting on Earth, and you get to build your spaceships in an alarming amount of complexity, and it really is a great amount of fun. But it is complicated, and it's also worth noting it's made by one guy, some guy on the internet named Steve made this game, and it is free. So that's fantastic. But with that does come a fair bit of complexity, and some things aren't quite as user-friendly as one might hope, being a free game, but this is an absolute gem of a game when you wrap your head around it. So I want this series to be kind of a playthrough, a tutorial playthrough of how to play this game, how some of the basics part of it, and I am by no means an expert at this game. I think few people can claim to be, just because there are so many different things in this game, so many different ways to play this game, and there are some mechanics in here that you can just completely avoid forever and have a fun time. And there's also different levels of detail you can go into. So that's a brief introduction of what this game is. I do want to go slightly over the game creation screen, because there are a number of options here which really are quite important, and I'm just going to go through what I have chosen. So I've made the maximum number of star systems as 100, which is quite small in the greater scheme of things, but I've often found that I don't really like going more than 20 or 30 or 40 star systems. For me, the game just kind of becomes too big and a bit too micromanage heavy, so I want to find aliens soon and fast, and I want things to be interesting and spicy quickly, so I've reduced the number of systems to 100. Local system generation chance is the probability of a newly discovered system connecting via a wormhole or jump point to your own system, so leaving these as defaults. The difficulty settings I'm also all going to leave at defaults. Now, the non-player generation chance by player and by NPR. NPR are the computer controlled players, and when I create the game, going to the next screen, I'm going to select 2. And what this means here is that if you discover a new system with an eligible planet, and there are a few qualifications, if you read in the green text in the box below, as to what are the requirements for an eligible planet. Temperature between minus 40 degrees centigrade and 60, some gravitational parameters and oxygen parameters as well. And what this means is that if you discover one of those planets, there will be a random dice roll, and depending on what number you've selected here, an alien race will be determined or be created by the computer. So it's a way of generating new aliens into the game. Now I've chosen 100% chance because I want to find aliens soon and fast. And I can change this number in game. So once I've found an alien civilization, I will modify this to 0, and I'll have an alien to fight and play with, and that'll be fun. That's the point. NPR generation chance by NPR. So what this means is that as the computer players explore the system, they can also discover new systems, and they can also generate new computer players to play with. I don't want them to do that. The core reason for this is that this game computationally can be a little challenging at times. So if you look at the top bar here, the time steps can vary between 5 seconds and 30 days. When your empire is just sitting along building shipyards and ships for construction, 30 days is a reasonable thing to be doing. Massive time steps. But when you're in combat, the game can just force it to 5-second ticks because people are shooting at each other, and that takes quite a lot of time to resolve. Now, when two computer players at the opposite side of the galaxies, when they start shooting at each other, they will slow your game down completely, and it's not great. So the way to prevent that is by having fewer computer players in the game. So that's the reason. I want to make sure there are some computer players in the game, and I want to make sure they're shooting at me, or rather I'm shooting at them. So that's the motivation for these controls. You can also get ruins on planets, so that can make things a little fun. You can explore them, and things can happen. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. Another one that's also going to go through is known star systems. Now, I never really appreciated that how important this was, so I've always had this ticked. But what this means is that the game is going to play generating using known star systems that physically exist in the world, and a lot of those are quite barren. And by barren, I mean boring. You have a star and not much else. No planets really, or comets, or any other thing of interest. If you untick it, okay, if you untick it, you can get randomly generated stars, and they tend to be more interesting. I've never actually played with this option unticked, so I am hoping for things to be a little bit more interesting. Along with the computer players in the game, you can also get precursors, invaders, star swarms, and rakas. And I haven't had too much experience with these things, but they're ticked, and maybe something will happen, and that can be fun. This is fun in very much the Dwarf Fortress notion of fun, you understand? Yes, if you know Dwarf Fortress, you know what I mean. It's when everything is going terribly. But that's why we play these games. It's confusing why this is fun. So let's click the play game button and see what happens. We should be taken to the game generation screen in a bit. This is just the background of a previous game I was playing. So, come on, did I click the wrong thing? Did I click play game? That was a mistake. I should have clicked new game. That's what I was supposed to check. Darn Star Systems, they changed the option. Let's make sure everything's right. Oh jeez. So I had what I wanted, so I'm just gonna have to change it because I accidentally cancelled it. That's a little frustrating, but here we are. No Star Systems, no. That seems fine, that seems fine. Everything else here seems fine. Okay, new game, that's it. So there are a few more start options here. 2025, that seems like a fine place to start. Number of player races, that's 1, that's me. Oh no, I have to change these again. Okay, so like I said, there are some things about this game that can be a little bit fiddly, but it is free and made by one awesome guy named Steve, who lives on the internet. I imagine he doesn't do much else, because he's able to make something so awesome, for which I am most appreciative. Okay, so starting year 2025, number of player races, that's me. Number of non-player races, I'm just gonna make that 2. I just feel that's a reasonable number to start off with. And yeah, so we have a random number of jump points. I'll get to jump points in a moment when I get closer into the game. The game is gonna be Battle Moose. That's me, just in case you were confused as to who I was as a person. So now we get to the race generation screen, and there's a bunch of optimization here. Race title, Moose. Race short name, Moose. Home world, Moose. That sounds fine. So don't want to do any of these things, so that's all fine there. Species human, that's fine. System theme, odd. The number of different naming selections that you can take here. And I'm going to go with United States just because I'm almost most familiar with the United States ranking theme. But there are all sorts of different options that you can choose here. And you can just take your fancy, whatever you like and prefer. I normally go with US submarines for no particular reason. Where are they now? Let's go with battleships. US battleships are actually quite fun. Here they are, US submarines. Okay, fantastic. And there are a number of different parameters you can choose here. Every race will have some slightly different parameters, and that seems fine. And you can even choose how you want to start off with. And I'm just going to go with the default, just because I think that's a fairly reasonable thing to be doing. He looks fine. The flag, let's change the flag. Okay, and there's a whole heap of different options that you can choose from, whatever you want. And you can upload flags in here, I think, as you please. It can be Klingon. Let's go with this one. No particular reason. Just kind of takes my fancies. And you can change your hull as well. This is purely cosmetic. And change the station as well. And these are just the pictures that I like. You can do whatever you want to do. Name theme. I don't know who the Zodani is. So let's go with German. German, United States. What a fantastic combination. Okie doke. Okay, so we go to create race. That should be fine. Okay. And that's my elevator music. Just waiting for the thing to generate. And then we're going to be thrust into the Earth solar system. So when we go into the Earth solar system, you'll see all the familiar planets are there. Hey, look at this. Okay, this is Earth. And yeah, there's a ton of different ways you can customize this. The first thing I like to do is turn asteroids off. That's here. And all of a sudden, things are just much more reasonable to look at. So here we are. That's Moose, or Earth, but instead it's Moose. And third rock from the sun, it is Moose. Who knew? Okay. So here we are. So the core theme about this game is this thing that we're going to call transmutonian minerals. And so basically the premise here is that we, the humans, or the mooses, discovered transmutonian minerals, and that changes everything. So it's kind of starting anew and afresh in everything. So everything that we're going to do is going to depend and revolve around these minerals. And when you start a new game, these are randomly generated. You're always going to get some of some, but you might end up with more of others. But you're always going to get some on Earth. You're going to get a mixed bag with reasonably high accessibility. And these are really important. So this is what we're going to revolve around for a large part of the time. So they're all generally used for different things. Uranium, you can kind of think as your steel. Okay, so that's fine. Neutronium is kind of think of it as a secondary steel. It's used in a lot of production. But the big thing that I look for here is corundium. Because you need to build a new mine, basically only needs corundium. So if we want to expand our infrastructure and mining networks, we're going to need new mines. To build new mines, you need corundium. So you build mines to make corundium, which can allow you to make more mines. You get the idea. So the accessibility ranges from 0 to 1. 1 is best, 0.1 is worst. And what that basically means is how much minerals you get per mine you put on the planet. So if you have a planet with 1, you get much more bang from your buck for a mine. So that's what you're looking for. So the corundium is okay. I would like it to be more. Accessibility is less than I'd like it to be. So the first thing we're actually going to want to do in this game, the very first thing, is figure out or send out a survey fleet and look at what other minerals exist on all our neighboring planets, moons, asteroids, and comets. And once we figure out what they are, we can make some pretty good decisions on what we want to mine or where we want to build mining colonies. So that's one of the big things that we want to do. Maybe I should have shown you what the colony looks like. So this is Earth. And so basically everything is basically colony. We look at colonies, and this is Earth. We have people, and people are pretty good because they give you taxes and they give you labor. You need labor to do a lot of things. So we've got 20 million people working in our mines, and we've got 12 million available workers. And if we have too many workers for our mines, then the mines don't work quite as good as they ought to. What else do we have here? We have a whole bunch of installations over here as well, and you can also see a list of resources that we have over here as well. And there are a whole bunch of other things, and I'm not going to go through everything right now. We'll add to the complexity as we progress. But let's focus on what we are going to do. So industry, we have some construction factories on Earth. You can see our construction factories here. Construction factories alarmingly build things. So if we definitely want more mines. So to build more mines, we need construction factories, and we want more construction factories so you can construct ever faster. So if you click on construction factory, you can see here it requires wealth, and we don't really have to worry about wealth so much. You don't want this to go negative, but for the moment it's usually not the bottleneck. It uses uranium and neutronium, and that's why I emphasized these materials earlier, because you need them to build factories. So I'm going to select, let's say 100, and I'm going to make 40% of our production capability going to make new construction factories. So put 100 there, 40 there, and then click the create button. Now you don't pay for them up front. You only pay for them as you commit the resources. So we haven't paid for them yet. We only pay for them as we build them. So now let's talk about mines, because mines and auto mines are important to distinguish from each other. They do the same thing in the sense that they mine materials at the same rates. The big difference is mines, they're half the price, and we can look here, but I think they also take half the amount of time to produce. So they're cheaper, but they require human labor, which is fine on Earth because we have human labor on Earth. But in other places in this world, like Venus or comets, which can't support human life, mines aren't really an option. So you want to put auto mines there. So basically you can think about it, if you have human labor, use mines. if you don't have human labor, use automated mines. We'll definitely want some, but we definitely want some mines as well, just to help get things started. So let's do 100 of that on auto mines. We can do 100 as well. So we're at 80% so far. We also want more research facilities, research factories. And this is one of the other materials that we want to look at, macassium. So a research facility, much more expensive, requires macassium as well. So that's also a resource that we want to pay attention to. So you can see now we've now committed 100% of our production capabilities, and that is fine. So then we can tick along. Okay. So let's focus on the next bit. The next bit is going to be our people, because this game isn't sufficiently complicated enough. We require people. So we have our commanders. You can have naval officers. These will fly our ships. Ground force commanders. There is ground combat in this game too, just because. But right now I'm looking for civilian administrators, because we're going to assign a civilian administrator to Earth, and they're going to give all sorts of bonuses to them. And now you can sort the civilian administrators by these tabs. The most important one I want to look for is actually population growth, because you need people to do things. So that's kind of what I like. Mining is also super important, and production will. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure production affects how fast buildings get built. And then when you get to the fourth one, just put in wealth creation there, because I quite like some wealth creation. And now you can see it filters on the first column. So Jacob Lehner has a 25% population growth bonus, no mining bonus, and 10% production. And you can look here and decide which one you like the mostest. Another thing that's worth considering is that you require a minimum rank of A3 to be assigned to Earth, or in this case, Moose. The smaller the colony, the lower the rank you require, but higher ranked colonies require higher ranked administrators. And we'll talk later how to get higher ranked administrators. So minimum A3, so I can go to the minimum rank here and select minimum rank 3, and these are now the options. Oh geez, that's a shame, because I really actually liked that guy earlier. What was his name? Jacob Lehner. Yeah, no. I think I wanted Norbert Hagen. 10% to population, 25% to mining. But when I tried to assign him to Moose, I'm not quite sure exactly how. This is a mechanic I've had difficulty with, but you kind of have to click his name and then there or there. There's some order, but you click assign. The admin rating of Norbert Hagen is too low for this assignment, so I can't use him, so that's a bit of a bummer. So these are my options. I am going to go with Eugene Koch. That is how I pronounce that name. But don't worry too much. As he continues in his endeavors, he will get better. Yeah, as people do things, they become more experienced and they do things. Okay, so that's that done. There are a few more things before we actually get to start playing. The next thing to do is to set up our research facilities and decide what we're going to research. So a big thing here is who we get and what fields the specializations are in and what bonuses they are. And this is kind of random draw, and you kind of just have to work with what you've got. There are a few ways you can kind of go through this, but so there are a few really important things I'm looking for. I'm looking for power and propulsion. I'm looking for construction and production. I'm looking for sensors and control systems. And right now, I've got a pretty garbage draw. No burns on sensors and control systems, and no one in construction and production, but I do have power and propulsion, so it's a small mercy. So you select power and propulsion here, power and propulsion. You select your power and propulsion guy, and then you select which research you want to research. So space is big, right? And without good engines, you aren't going to get anywhere fast. So you want good engines, fuel efficient engines. That's a big part of early life exploration. So pressurized water reactor sounds like a good thing to do. You know what we're actually going to do? Let's talk about this instant thing, because we actually start off with about 80,000 research points. Now I'm not going to want to use them all now, but I do want to get us to a point where we can start exploring the system. Okay, so I'm just going to choose some technologies that I want to do, and then I'm going to go instant. When we created the game, there was an option that you're able to let the game auto-assign these research points, but I don't like to do that because the game will auto-assign all of them. And I always want to keep a few in the bank here, because later in the game, when we design custom weapons, and that's taking this technology, and then you actually have to design the weapon system and design the engine system, and that can be a bit of a pain. So what I like to be able to do is when I design the systems, I like to be able to instant them and immediately put them on my ship without having to research them in the research screen. So I always like to keep some in the back. And if that doesn't sound particularly clear, we'll get to that later on. So you choose the technology that you like, and I'm going to go instant. So in many ways, you can think of us as selecting the economic technologies that will allow us to grow our economy as fast as possible. So fuel consumption, yes please, I want fuel efficient engines. Okay, pebble bed reactor, that sounds like an excellent idea. And yeah, let's nuclear pulse technology. Let's start there. That sounds like a good place to start. Now, to connect, so we exist in a solar system, and to get from one solar system to another, you have to go through these jump points. So we first need the technology. So we're going to do jump point, and then you also need at least one in jump drive efficiency, max jump squadron, and max jump squadron jump radius. Okay, so with those three technologies, we now can build what they call a jump drive. And the jump drive allows a ship to go through a jump point and venture into the next solar system. If you don't have a jump drive, you can't stabilize the jump point, and once it's stabilized, ordinary ships can go through. But until it's stabilized, only ships with jump drives can go through. And defense is an important mechanic here, because you don't want to stabilize jump points between you and an enemy unless you're ready to fight, because it allows them to enter into your space just as easily as you could into theirs, and you can't unstabilize it once it's stabilized. Once it's stabilized, it's permanent. You can't undo it. So you do want to take that consideration. So that's enough in power and propulsion. Let's go to construction and production. These are our true economic techs. Construction rate, instant, yes please. Fuel production, sure. Jump point stabilization module, it does what it says on the can. Mining production, yes please. Research rate, yeah. Shipbuilding rate, yeah. All these are good. Okay, let's keep an eye on that though, because we don't want to run out of them too quickly. Let's also go to logistics, because I like some large fuel storage. I also like, where do I like it? It's ground combat. There's a lot of technologies here. Troop transport, standard bay. Let's take some geo survey equipment in case I need it. Sensors, let's go to sensors. Sensors and control systems. You definitely need geological survey sensors and gravitational survey sensors. Okay, that's enough for now. So let's assign some research labs. So I only have 20 research labs. Let's start with power and propulsion, because I have a power and propulsion guy. Fantastic. Ruben Haber, power and propulsion 10%. But he can only use 5 labs. So let's start him on, let's start him on that technology. That's for the reactor, but the reactor will lead to a better engine. I definitely want construction and production, but I don't have anybody to do this technology. So we have a military academy, and the military academy will train new and better scientists. As the game goes on, I might build a higher level military academy, which will be more scientists. But for the moment, I really want someone in this field, and I don't need energy weapons yet. And I have an energy weapon guy here, but I really want construction tech. So Joachim Brodkov is going to be my construction rate guy. And you can be like, but he is energy weapon specialist. And yes, he is. But I can go here, so back to commanders, back to scientists, energy weapons, Joachim Brodkov. I can change his field. He won't like it, he'll be very sad. But I'm going to change his field to construction and production. It's only 5% because there's a huge reduction, but 5% is better than no percent. And I don't really need energy weapons. And when I do get to the point of researching energy weapons, I'm hoping I'm going to have a better option. So let's go to construction rate. I don't need to give him all of them. all the research labs, you can just take 10. And I can also queue. So construction rates, I can then queue things like wealth generation. We don't need that yet. Let's go with mining production. Yes, that seems fine. So we got construction, mining. Let's go with shipyard operations, that too. Any bit of savings. Now it is worth considering just assigning 1 or 2 labs to the rest, because what this does is it lets them research, and as they research, it gives them practice. So they'll get better at time, and I think I've noticed they get much better over time if they actually do things. In many ways in this game, your characters develop by doing. So let's just let's just make a queue here for the time being. What else do we want? Sensors and control. It's got no bonus, but oh jeez, let's just go with him for the moment. It's a bit sad. Surprisingly, sensors and control systems are some of the more important techs in this game. Having the weapons is one thing, but oh, I accidentally added too many labs here. So he's got 5 of the 15 labs. I can just remove 2. And sensors and control systems. So having the weapons is one thing, but allowing the weapons to hit is actually a big part of this game. So I'm going to research the tech that allows better sensors that can better sense where the enemies are, and that can increase the accuracy of the weapons, and it's surprisingly extremely important. Okay, so I think that's okay. So we've gone through actually quite a lot here. We've gone through the colonies, the basic colonies. We've gone through the mining and what's important. We've assigned the commanders and assigned our research and selected our research and did some research. But I think I'm going to call this video a close here now. I haven't even played a single turn yet. So this is just an overview of how to get the game started and set up. And in the next video, I'm going to design a survey ship that's going to fly around, about 3 or 4 of them, fly around the system, scanning our nearby planets and comets and asteroids, figuring out where the minerals are, plan where our new colonies and mine bases are going to be, and also survey what the game calls survey locations. And once I do that, you're going to find the other jump points for the neighbors, and that's where the exploration starts. So then we're going to send these survey ships out in the galaxy, figuring out what else is where, and build interstellar, intersolar system colonies. So that's going to be fun. And I realize now, one thing that I actually did miss as well is our shipyards. So shipyards are pretty important too. They're quite serious. So to build ships, again, these are randomly designed or randomly generated. Every game is a little bit different. So you got N for military ships and C for commercial ships. They're quite different. Commercial ships don't require maintenance. They're generally much bigger. Military ships do require maintenance. They're usually much smaller, and you really have to watch the fuel use, their engines and engine power, and how much maintenance resources they require. So the military ships, they will do the shooting, they'll do the surveying. Commercial ships do all your economics mostly, so generally much bigger. And what we can do here is we can make them bigger. So you can select the shipyard and you can choose, do you want to add capacity so you can build bigger ships, or add another slipway so you can build more ships at the same time. And if you retool in here, so you actually assign a class to the shipyard, and then the shipyard can only produce that class. And then to actually change the class, you have to go through the retooling process. So actually changing what the shipyard can build is an investment. So 9,000 is something at the moment. Let's just add 5,000, and this will cost resources. So we are able to build bigger ships. These commercial shipyards are actually quite big already. So I'm going to add a slipway to them. And this isn't such an issue, because what the game actually allows you to come with is, I'll show it later, but you basically start off with some instant build points. And I'm going to use those. So in the next video, I'm going to design a survey ship, and I'm just going to use them and build them with my instant build points. So I won't actually build them with a shipyard. So that's why I'm not so concerned about occupying my shipyards now with those activities. So yeah, thank you for joining me for this game. nothing really happened in this video. This is basically just setup. There's a lot to this game, and I hope the series will help some people get into the game, because it's very complicated, and it really helps. And I know when I first started learning this game, I was watching other people's videos and going through, but that was in the previous version of Visual Basic. So yeah, the main, obviously, I hope you guys are enjoying in and have fun, and also let me know how I can do things better, because there are definitely things in this game that I don't quite know how to do super good. But the idea is that you could follow through and play the game in a competent manner without it being too difficult. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Okay, thanks.